Okay, has everybody's gotten their food, there'll be seconds available, but I'd first like to introduce Paul to you. We're happy to have him here, we're very lucky to have him here, he's a great public speaker. Just a little bit of his background. Paul Arafay is an award-winning public speaker and communication coach with over a decade of experience at Toastmasters International. He has competed at the district level in speech competitions and has facilitated workshops for students, professionals, and community organizations across New Jersey. So everybody help me welcome Paul.
My name is Paul Arafay. I'm the founder of Should Call Paul. We do workshops for education in artificial intelligence. Seriously, how many of you almost fell asleep listening to that introduction? Be honest. And why? It was boring and it was predictable. I'm saying my name, the name of my company, what we do, it's too straightforward. 7 seconds. 7 seconds is how long you have to get the audience's attention. That's the most important part of doing an elevator speech. Why is this? Because we have so many things to distract us. Any moment you can take out your phone, check your text messages, check your email, that's perfectly fine. Doing a 30-second elevator speech is very challenging. And if you're nervous about it, that is totally fine and it's normal. Why is it something that's scary? Because your business is personal to you. You're trying to convince the audience that what you do is as important and as valuable as you know it is. Luckily, there's a framework that we're going to talk about for crafting as well as delivering your elevator speech. I've been in the Chamber of Commerce for a while, and I still remember the very first time I came to an event just like this. I knew I had to give the 30-second elevator speech. I was sitting in my chair just like everyone else, but to make matters worse, I was probably the last person to give my elevator speech. It was maybe 20 minutes for me to be nervous, to shake in my chair, to get sweaty. I do this all the time, but the 30-second elevator speech is something, even to me, it's very hard to do. Now, when I presented, I think I did a good job, but I knew there were areas I could improve in. So that's why I did the research, and congratulations to all of you. I'm about to present my blueprint for doing this. First, I want to talk about a gentleman named Andy Bounds. Andy Bounds is a communication expert. He wrote the book called The Jelly Effect. And what Andy Bounds is referring to is whenever someone does an elevator speech, it's like you have a bucket of jelly. And then you're taking the jelly and you're just flinging it at the audience, hoping that something will stick. So that's what not to do. Don't oversaturate it with too much information, hoping they're going to remember 1 or 2 or 3 things. The idea is to remove all of that fluff and don't talk about who you are or what you do. That sounds counterintuitive, but what you want to focus on is the after effect. How is the client going to change after working with you or adopting your service? That's the most important part. Now, the introduction is part of what I call the wow. We're going to talk about wow, how, now. Those are the 3 parts of any good elevator speech. The wow is exactly what we were talking about at the introduction. You need to get your audience's attention, and there are 3 options that you can exercise. 1, ask a relatable question. That's it. You're not expecting an answer, but it's what I call the who here. Who here does this? Who here does that? Use the who here. It's a good, valuable strategy. Like I mentioned, I teach AI workshops for schools and small businesses. I could ask a question like, who here is confused and overwhelmed by all of the AI tools that are out there? That's a good way to start. It's relatable, it connects with the audience, and it gets them thinking. The other thing that you could do is introduce an interesting fact. For example, did you know that 90% of small businesses are using artificial intelligence, but less than 10% are able to streamline it properly and save time and money? That's an interesting fact. And third, use a micro story. Don't go on and on and on, but saying a personal story that introduces your business is always a great way to start your elevator speech. For example, did you know the other week I was at a meeting, someone gave a speech that sounded so robotic. I could tell they used ChatGPT, but they didn't know how to tailor it using their own words. So that's a personal story that I could use to lead into my business and what I do. Does that make sense? That is the wow factor. Now let's talk about the how. How is when you then get into more specifics. This is where you pivot and you tell everybody what your business is, you introduce the problem, but more importantly, introduce the solution. Tell the audience how you are going to solve their problem. And there's a formula for doing this. It goes like this. I help enter your target audience, achieve, enter the outcome, without the negative consequence. For example, I help schools and small businesses achieve increased productivity without the hassle and the technical know-how. Very simple, straightforward. And keep in mind, 30 seconds is approximately 75 words. It's not a lot of time, and it's not a lot of words to sell the audience and sell your client on your business. So we talked about wow, we talked about how. Now, let's talk about the now. The now is the call to action. What do you want the audience to do? Now, a couple of recommendations for your call to action. Try avoiding giving them your website URL. Why do you think you should avoid the URL? Because they're not going to remember it. They might have a notepad, they can write it down or enter it into their browser on their phone, but for the most part, they're not going to remember your website. Even if you have an amazing website called shouldcallpaul.com, even if it's as awesome as that, that's my own website, that's why I mentioned it. Even if you have a website like that, it's still best to avoid doing that. Now what I do, and this is considered best practice in the entire industry, I have a tattoo of a QR code on my chest, and I just I'm kidding! I would never do that, especially while you're eating food. But the best practice is to simply invite them to talk to you after the meeting is over. The point of the elevator speech is not to tell them exactly how you do what you do. It's really to get your foot in the door. It's to pique their interest enough so that they will come up to you afterwards and talk to you. So we have a framework now, right? It's so easy. We talked about wow, how, and now. Now there were a couple of notes that I took while you were giving your individual elevator speeches. Now don't worry, I'm not going to pick on people one-on-one, but just to give you some advice, sort of more high level and globally. When I talked about the introduction, try to rotate that week after week. That's important because if people are hearing the same facts, or they're hearing the same question, or the same micro story, it might get a little bit boring. Now how do you change it? You can use AI, that's fine. Or you can think about the problem that you and your business tackled for that week. And then tell them the story, ask them the question, or give them the interesting fact that came about. That's advice number 1. Also, when you do your elevator speech, if possible, you want to stand up. Now, some of you have the unfortunate position of being against the wall with the table blocking you. I understand that. So if you can, try to stand up first. The reason for that is because it helps you to project your voice. I'm speaking at a volume so that hopefully the gentleman behind the counter can hear me, right? And then the people in front of me, they have to cover their ears because I'm so loud. But standing up helps you to project your voice. And don't start speaking until you're standing up. You don't want to sit down and say, "Hi, I'm Paul, I'm should call Paul." Don't speak during the transition. Stand up first and then pause. There's no rush, right? The clock starts when you start speaking, not when you're about to get up. So stand up, pause, survey the room, do the eye contact, and then go into your elevator speech. I'm going to now just reference my notes before I close because I want to make sure I got everything. One thing that you might want to consider is have a friend record you do your elevator speech. And it's scary. I don't like to watch myself speak. I'm recording myself. I'm not going to watch it. But try this technique. Go home and then give yourself your own evaluation. Right? Ask yourself, was I loud enough? Was I clear? Was my intro interesting? And the most exciting thing to do is record the audience while you're speaking. How many people were looking down? How many people were eating, checking their email while you were speaking? That gives you a good gauge of the level of interest that everyone has. So hopefully those were some useful techniques, and I am more than happy to work one-on-one with any of you to try to elevate your elevator speech. Thank you so much for your time.